All right, gentlemen. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
A little nervous, but good.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous too. All right, we will start with Benjy. Who is your favorite host on WFAN and why?
I love Steve Summers. He's one of the boys, and he constantly brings it on the show, and you just got to love his whole personality. Clearly, he knows his sports, and he's able to mix that with that wacky personality. It's just a joy to listen to.
How about you, Larry?
It would have to be Joe Benigno. Overnight Joe Benigno, not midday Joe Benigno. I grew up falling asleep to the fan every night. And Joe would be my reactionary, therapeutic medium when I was upset about the Mets and couldn't scream in my parents' house, clearly, and wake them up. I'd listen to Joe. He'd scream and he'd yell, and that would be what I was thinking in my head, but couldn't say it. It was very therapeutic to me. So Joe will always have a soft spot in my heart.
Guys, start with Larry. Give me your first time you really recognized you loved sports, and what was the thing that made it that you loved sports?
First time I really recognized I love sports, walking into Shea Stadium when I was 4 years old and going under the archway. We went to the upper deck. We always had upper deck seats. My dad and I walked under one of those archways because obviously it wasn't open then. It was that tunnel thing. And you walk under the tunnel and you see the landscape and you see the perfectly cut grass. And all I can remember is, wow, I want to be on that field someday. And of course that obviously didn't happen, which is why I'm here. But I remember my dad pointing out Darryl Strawberry to me. I remember him saying, you see that missing light over there in the ball sign? That's where Darryl Strawberry hit a ball one day. And just how massive it looked. It was hard to fathom just how special it was with everyone and the atmosphere. And that was when I realized I first loved sports.
I grew up in a house with 6 older brothers, so there was no question that sports was on top. When I knew how important sports was when on Saturday mornings the boys would line up by the front door waiting for them to throw the daily news because we didn't know what the Mets did the night before. And they were all battling to see who would see it first and who would be able to spread the good or usually bad news to the rest of the family. And from there it just took off.
All right, both you guys, number one sports that you love to follow. That your favorite team, number one sport, baseball, football, hockey, whatever it might be. What are you the most passionate about? Which team?
I gotta give the Giants the number one slot, only because to win 3 Super Bowls in my lifetime is just, I couldn't have dreamed of that. I mean, the Giants have probably 20 years of being bad in the pocket because 3 Super Bowls and the feeling that I had when Norwood missed that field goal. I mean, I was at Game 7 of the Rangers Stanley Cup. That was close, but when Norwood missed that field goal, I don't think I've ever experienced such a high.
For me, it's the Mets are 1 and everyone else is 1A. I get the most passionate about the Mets. I played baseball in high school and college. I grew up in Queens, obviously, 10 minutes away, being from Bayside. My second favorite team, the Giants, just because on Sundays you need something to be passionate about, and I've always been passionate about them. And they won, which isn't like any of my other teams. My second favorite sport, though, would be college basketball. I've always been a huge college basketball fan, not as much as of an NBA fan, but I always liked the way that college basketball was structured and how the games were quick and how the teams were passionate, and there's nothing that beats the NCAA tournament. So it would be college basketball as my second favorite sport.
All right, it's time to hear from you guys. We will start with Benjy. Benjy, right into the microphone, and you are on the clock.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Sports Fire with Benjy Schreier. Today I'm all fired up about bringing instant replay to Major League Baseball. The more I see blown calls week after week, it's crazy that we don't do something to fix it. A few weeks ago, I was watching the Mets-Dodgers. 2 games in a row, the same umpire, the same base runner. He blows 2 calls, one at first base on the back end of a double play where Kemp was clearly out, and he called him safe. And then there was a play at the plate where Kemp was clearly tagged on the leg. He called him safe. Now, I'd like to know who could give me a good reason why not to do instant replay. Everybody will be for instant replay. The managers, they would love instant replay. Right now, if an umpire blows a call, what can a manager do? He has two choices. He can walk out there, talk to the umpire and say, you blew the call, you know that? Okay, walk back to the dugout, nothing. Or he could run out, curse the umpire out, and spend the rest of the day in the clubhouse. Imagine if Whitey Herzog had walked out to Don Denkinger in 1985, said to him, excuse me, Don, I think you missed that call. Maybe we should review it. So, admittedly, Denkinger would not have been the Grand Marshal of the Royals Victory Parade. However, the call would have been right. The Cardinals would have won the World Series. How about the umpires? Do you think they care if the call is changed? They don't. I've talked to dozens of umpires over the years. All they care about is getting the call right. So if they had a way when they blew a call to have it fixed, they would do it. And the fans? I admit, the fans will miss Lou Piniella and Billy Martin and Earl Weaver going crazy. But for the most part, they just want the right call.
So baseball is a game of inches, correct? Do you expect that if you institute instant replay for more than what they're doing now, 10 times a game, 50 times a game, 100 times a game, they could be playing baseball all night?
I love the NFL. I love the NFL rule. Unless Rex Ryan is in charge of the challenges, a manager in the ninth inning of a close game will be able to walk out there to the umpire and say, listen, we need to look at that call. Give him 2 a game. It's not going to be any hold up there. Give him 2 a game.
Well, what they found already was with these home run calls, they take 3 to 5 minutes off and sometimes longer.
Again, we all watch the replays on TV. 95% of them are pretty clear. If it's not clear, it goes to the NFL rule. And I love the NFL rule for that. It's supposed to be only if it's clear.
All right, Beltran. How would you, he's been here 6.5 years, how would you describe the career of Carlos Beltran as a Met?
It's been a disappointment. It's been a disappointment because the Mets didn't win a World Series. That's 1, 2, 3. He had a couple of good years, too many injuries. He was not the superstar that he had to be. A couple of All-Star games, not the superstar that we paid all that money for 7 years ago.
Well, what you remember about him is that Wainwright called strike 3?
No, I don't blame him for that. Well, Adam Wainwright, you saw the way he was throwing. He wasn't gonna hit a home run there. He wasn't gonna get a hit there. If he took it or he swung, what was the difference? I don't know why people make such an issue that he was standing there. Beltran happens to be a guy who looks for the walk when it's there, and he doesn't swing at bad pitches. So a curveball is gonna get him.
All right, you focused a lot on the Mets. The Yankees, as we get towards the trading deadline, what do you expect the Yankees to do as we get to July 31st?
I'm seeing a little bit of a different Yankee management over the last year or two, perhaps. In the old Yankees, they would just go get Jimenez, they would go get Beltran, they would go get anybody they could. You and I both know that the Yankees and the Red Sox are both going to make the playoffs. I don't think the Yankees need to mortgage anything in order to be a little bit better in the playoffs. Once you get to the playoffs in baseball, it's about getting hot at the right time, whether you have Jimenez or whether you have Colon.
All right, thank you very much. Nicely done. Team Larry, you are on the clock. We'll start you again. Hang on one second.
Test.
There we go. Go ahead.
Leave it to Larry on the fans. Sports Radio 66, WFAN New York. And last month at Roosevelt Field Mall, the word of the day was resiliency. And the resiliency of the 2011 New York Mets, in spite of all their setbacks, to stay in the NL wildcard race. But today, the word of the day is challenges. Because one player has been obviously absent from this resilient run, and that's Mets third baseman David Wright, who comes off the DL tomorrow in Miami. For David Wright, these are the 10 most important days of his career, and I'll tell you why. Can he live up to the challenges? David's coming back to a completely different landscape from when he left. Jose Reyes is now the unquestionable leader of this team. David Wright is no longer the franchise, and that's because for the last 2 years, David Wright has had every opportunity to lead this team and be a clutch player, and he's failed every time. 2009, 141 strikeouts. 2010, 160 strikeouts. 2011, a 226 batting average. Those are not franchise player numbers. And now we have the trade deadline 10 days away. And we have Sandy Alderson and the new Mets front office looming in the corner, in the shadows, just waiting for their chance to revamp this team and grab that white towel and throw it into the ring and surrender for 2011. You have Beltran on the block. He's going to go any day. You have the Wilpons in their skybox, counting their money, seeing where they can cut payroll for next year. And you have David Wright sitting there, facing these challenges. And if the Mets re-sign Jose Reyes to that lucrative deal, there are 2 things that David Wright has to prove in these next 10 days and beyond. Number 1, can he be a part of the resurgent effort in 2011 to keep the Mets in this wild card race and keep Sandy Alderson and the rest of the front office from calling off the dogs? But more importantly, number 2, can he prove that he is going to be a part of the nucleus for 2012 and beyond? For David Wright, it's simply speak now or forever hold your peace.
So are you saying that if David Wright does not have a strong 10 days, the Mets should trade him? What are you saying about David Wright? I'm a little unclear.
What I'm saying is that with the trade deadline looming, Sandy Alderson and DePodesta and Ricciardi, they have to make a lot of tough decisions. They have to decide how they're going to rebuild the team. They have to decide if they're going to keep Jose Reyes, and obviously they have a budget. So David Wright, in the next 10 days, could be part of a resurgency in the Mets in their playoff push for 2011, but also prove that when the Mets decide whether they want to keep Reyes or how much they want to pay for Reyes, they have to factor in how much they're going to want to pay Wright after next season, and whether he's going to be a part, and whether they could deal him for another chip if they don't deal someone like Reyes or Beltran.
All right, let's change the subject. The NBA. Who should be the Knicks' next general manager, and why?
Well, you'd hope to get Jerry West if you could, but obviously that's a far-fetched dream, and I don't think he's going anywhere. And I see the Knicks' biggest problem this year. They're not going to be able to make any acquisitions this year. They're not enough. They don't have enough room under the cap. But their biggest problem is that Landry Fields, as soon as they got Carmelo, just wouldn't show up anymore. He took a back seat to the...
Who should be the general manager? You're not answering the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did. I'd love for them to get Jerry
West.
West.
You wanted Jerry West, and you said they're not going to get him. Who should be the general manager?
Well, those are tough decisions for James Dolan. As long as he doesn't go back to Isaiah Thomas, I think I'm happy. You'd like to see them get a Jerry West. You'd like to see them pry someone away from another team. But in the end, we have, with the lockout, I think they're more concerned about finding someone they can afford.
All right, what is do you think Phil Hughes will prove here in the second half that he will be a reliable October piece for the Yankees, and why?
Well, he'd have to be very reliable. I mean, he didn't show any reliability in the first half of the season when he had the dead arm problems. He's still a very young player. Again, he had that 18-win season. But the Yankees have the same problem as they do in the past. Even if Phil Hughes has a great run down the stretch here heading into the playoff push, when they head to the playoffs, the Yankees still don't have a number 2 reliable pitcher. And I don't think it's Phil Hughes. I don't think it's Freddie Garcia. I don't think it's Bartolo Colon. And then you look at the Red Sox, they have a similar lineup, a similar offensive potency, but they have Lester, Buchholz, and Beckett. And I don't see Phil Hughes matching up with any of those 3 guys. So when you get to the playoffs, which is the only really where the Yankees judge their season, how they do on their playoff run, I think they're in big trouble unless they can acquire someone in the next 10 days.
All right, Benjy and Larry, thank you very much.